Okay, so the next position paper is going to be on autonomous vehicles. So to explain a little bit more, so I have done some research on autonomous vehicles. It's interesting, Waymo has started to have vehicles in Phoenix. I've seen a couple of others out there. Realize there's a difference between driverless vehicles and autonomous ones. So I've written a couple of papers on autonomous vehicles, and actually autonomous vehicles are a practical use of artificial intelligence. Does anybody know, by the way, how generative AI works and how they actually train the chips that are used in artificial intelligence by running hundreds of thousands of scenarios? And the chip actually builds something like a neural network. And that's how you create artificial intelligence. Well, they do the same thing for autonomous vehicles. So they have these gigantic LLM models, these long length models of every possible driving scenario. And what happens is they train the chips inside the vehicles so that they can, in essence, be able to predict things that will happen on the road. That's not what happens with Waymo or the others. Waymo basically is supported by an outside network within a city. You couldn't drive a Waymo out of Phoenix into Tucson. It's built within that given area. So in the position paper, I want you to think of autonomous vehicles as being vehicles that have complete control of driving, okay? So I wrote a journal article on autonomous vehicles and locus of control, our willingness and our ability to accept something that we don't have control over. And it was really interesting, it was fascinating because, well, for one thing, it was with another honor student. He was shocked at how concerned people are about being in a vehicle in which they have no control over. Anyway, so the position paper will be due November 4th. I'll send an email out so everybody knows about it. So remember again is that in your group, whether you agree or disagree, you agree if the whole statement is true, but if one section is not true, then you don't agree with it. So this is a conjunction, all right? It's a conjunction of three phrases. Autonomous vehicles, ones that take complete control of driving. That's the best chance to succeed is at regular automobile dealerships. That's a second statement, a phrase, where people can compare features with regular automobiles. That's the third statement, okay? So what is the key to this? The key to this statement is whether you consider autonomous vehicles to be, think about it, shopping goods, where you would compare the features, or you think of it as a unique specialty item, okay? Which does not require or encourage comparison, all right? And whether or not that comparison adds to the basic, overall balance, to give you an idea of what is the best way to shop it, okay? So just think of it that way. Is the vehicle so unique and special that it is a specialty item, or is its best ways to compare features? That's how you make the decision, okay? And I'll send you an email, like I said, on this. So also, I finished grading, but I have yet to post all the grades because I'm adding all of the extra points. Of my 60 students, 22 of you went to business career. I'm proud of you. I mean, really, 1 out of 3 of y'all went. And that's just awesome. I'm very happy to trade letter grades for that because, you know, I'm not here just to teach. I'm here to help you get a successful career. So I have no problem, you know, throwing points out to be able to get y'all to go. So good job. Very, very good. I was talking to a few of the other students. They're already going through interviews. So well done. Okay. All right. So let us move on. And we're going to talk about retailing. So just to go over what we talked about on Tuesday, remember that retailing, whether it's a retail sale or a wholesale sale, depends on the buying motive. What is the reason that we go and purchase an item? If we're buying it for our personal consumption, then we are the ultimate consumers and it is a retail sale. If it is in the resale or the use or consumption of a business or institution, if it is a direct cost of goods sold, or if it's part of general and administrative expense, it's a wholesale sale. That's the key. So we talked about retail positioning strategies. We're going to talk about, we've talked about cost side positioning strategies. Today we'll talk about demand side. And the taxonomy basically means that there's a blend, that no real place is only cost side and only demand side. And so we talked Tuesday about, of course, we talked about that there's 2 frames of reference when it comes to the goods. Either you have high margins and low turnover, and you have high service, or you have low price retailing systems in which you have low margins and you have high turnover, and it is your efficiencies at moving inventory that ultimately provide you with the widest margins. And of course, we talked about Zara and H&M, which straddles between the difference. I feel like I'm always saying that these are the rules, but there are exceptions, which there are. So remember this, we talked about on Tuesday, that each one of these costs improve profitability comes down to 3 things: maximizing profit in inventory, maximizing profit with employees, and maximizing profit per square foot. And that's the way to think of these 3 together, okay? So, moving right along, today we're going to talk about demand side. So remember, cost and profit requires demand, okay? And so how we go about manipulating both of these ultimately helps determine the success of our organizations, and each one of our decisions on this depends on the type of organization that we are. So if you notice, these come directly from the service outputs, but we're going to talk about them more directly when it comes to retail environments. And of course, bulk breaking. Bulk breaking is a provenance of every retail intermediary. You could actually think that retail stores in its initial purpose was to take large pieces and break them into quantities that the consumers exactly want. Not all retailers do this. Retailers such as Costco, which is fascinating, instead of a Walmart or a supermarket that has 50,000 separate items, Costco has anywhere from 1,700 to 7,000. But their particular way that they work is is that they don't break the bulk. They allow the consumer to break the bulk. And since consumers perform service functions, they in essence get a break in the price for breaking those up into smaller units. Now, once again, here we go into the yes, but dollar stores offer small quantities at very low costs, but they do this by manipulating two things. One is the price by the buyers. We'll talk about that. And they also do that by manipulating the breadth versus the depth, which we'll talk about as well. And so every retail outlet just about uses bulk breaking in one way or another to be able to achieve their overall strategy goals. Spatial convenience. So the vast majority of goods generally tend to be convenience goods, and convenience goods break down in 3 or 4 categories. They are either impulse items in which you buy at an impulse, which means there's very little effort, or you don't want to spend an hour deciding between a Coke and a root beer, that you make peripheral choices based upon the 5 senses. The way it looks, the color, the shape, those are the reasons that you buy those. And so the retail needs to be convenient to your target market, which means convenience is the #1 reason why you're buying, which also means price is secondary. So you have impulse items, you have fast-moving consumer goods, which are like cigarettes and candy. You also have emergency items in which you have to buy at the closest or nearest place possible. And then you have staples, which are those goods you buy almost every other day, like bread, milk, cheese. Those are staple items. It's interesting, noting back to Dollar General puts their staples in the very front versus Walmart, which puts theirs in the very back. So if you go into a Dollar General, depending on which one you find, generally the coolers or the reefers are usually up front where you find the milk and the eggs and the other things. Convenience for them is #1. So how you go about choosing that? Well, it's up to you. Walgreens, and I've talked about them, they come up with locations that are usually on consumer shopping paths. And it's not unusual also for Walgreens to have either a CVS or Rite Aid right next to each other. So there's a lot of research when it comes to spatial connections. We know this is that when 2 stores are near each other, but not too near and not too far away, they actually generate more revenue than if they were separate or they were right next to each other. So they did this experiment on the beach, and they sold 2 things, hot dogs and beer. And they put these 2 particular stands within 50 feet of each other. They found that closeness generated more sales than if they were right next to each other or if they were too far away. There's a reason why pharmacies are next to each other. There is a reason why automobile dealerships are near each other. They all have a particular purpose. One of them is the items that they are selling are shopping goods, and consumers desire the need to shop. And so that's why they go from one place to the next. And so spatial convenience, I want to put this into not only the thought of convenience goods, but also in shopping goods as well. There needs to be separation to show uniqueness, but they need to be close enough to each other to encourage the activity. So when the Nintendo Wii came out in 2005, 2006, it was like nothing else that had ever been out. The kinetic interface that the Wii used was so overwhelmingly unique. And they had that particular market for nearly 18 months before Microsoft came out with their version in the Xbox, that people were willing to accept an out-of-stock situation because of how unique and special it was. We're moving away from those times naturally, because one of them is that we have so many more places that we can find those goods, especially online. Each retailer has to determine how much out of stock they can be. There are some things that people are willing to wait for, and there's some things that absolutely can't. And the norms in the marketplace have changed substantially, because especially with your generation, you consider shopping online and shopping in the store to have equal advantages. You know, the unique thing, electronics, 40 to 45% of all electronics are bought online. However, of those 45% of electronics that are bought online, 75% of you will actually go into a store first and actually see it before you actually buy it. So what is that? That thing that's called the need to touch, which is kind of the visceral feeling of being able to actually look at the item before you buy it, that consumers desire. It's not enough simply for you to look at an item and say it's okay. It's not enough to go look through all of the information that you have and say, I'll buy that. You've got to see it with your own eyes, especially if it's an item where there's a lot of financial risk. So I bought a 75-inch television 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, when I got my tenure. And Dr. Albanson, my wife, said it was okay before she actually saw how big it was. She loves it. Okay. But I went through, and I tend to be very technical oriented. I was in computers for 20 years. And so I spent weeks going through all the technical aspects. And even then, at the very end, when I was deciding on which one I got, I had to go into Walmart and actually see it with my own eyes. And so, you know, I was willing to wait, and I was willing to accept a certain amount of time, but there were some other aspects that I absolutely refused to do. And one of them was to fool with the delivery, because I wanted the delivery to be by an individual bringing it to my house. And I was willing to wait a week with the delivery for that to happen. So with product variety, I want to show you something, give you a better idea. So variety describes the breadth of the lines, and assortment is the depth. And I'll show you something that gives you a better idea of what this means. Okay, so, excuse me. Let's see. Oops, wrong. Hold on. There it is. So let me reach out and get this. So this is product variety, and this is breadth versus width. Okay, so this is Procter & Gamble. These are the items that they sell, okay? And this is the width of the items that they sell. And this is the depth. Now, what's kind of unique in this, if you look at it, is these are the actual years that Procter & Gamble bought these items. So Ivory soap has been around since 1879, which is fascinating to me. You can look at the ages of each one. So Procter & Gamble has a large width, but Procter & Gamble also has an excellent depth. Now, you might say to yourself, how can you possibly have this many different laundry detergents. Well, each one of those is for a different market segment. And it makes perfectly sense in Procter and Gamble's terms, and each one of those particular items makes money. Keep it around. And so this is just within the Procter and Gamble universe, these particular items. Gain's an interesting story. So Gain was just like any other laundry detergent. When laundry detergent came out, there was no such thing as liquid laundry detergents, because liquid detergents were considered only for washing dishes. So 60s and 70s came along, they came up with this liquid formula, and Gain came out in 1976. I've been trying to look for this somewhere. Gain came out with a liquid, and in order to sell the item, Procter and Gamble sent out with newspapers across the United States, this is one newspaper, the daily thing, 40 million little two-use bottles of Gain. And from that moment on, Gain has never been less than number 3 in the total laundry detergents that Procter and Gamble sell. It fundamentally changed our perception of what a laundry detergent can be. It went from solid to liquid, which is where we are now. Okay, so width versus depth. So we get that. Now, how we go about creating that assortment depends upon the strength of our organization and our marketing strategy. So we can choose to be narrow to appeal to a particular niche, or we can try to have a wider group depending on the particular corporation that we are. Walmart has a different idea than a regular supermarket does. They believe in a width, but not necessarily depth. Now, how are you able to do this? Well, it takes buyers to be able to do some of the specialized buying that goes on. So a buyer, I actually had a buyer here from Dollar General, and he talked about how he went about going to get his particular items. Realizes that when manufacturers make things, many times they will be put in specialized warehouses where those particular items might sit for a while before someone actually comes around and buying, because not every cycle in a business is perfectly flat. Of course, we're coming up with a big buying season for Christmas, and so it's kind of a rising tide floats all boats, is that retail in general is going to jump everywhere. So sometimes you have to store them. So I found this interesting. Buyers can many times make as much money for a corporation as the actual product itself. So if I am looking at a buyer, excuse me, so buyers for Dollar General, and this is one of those individuals. So buyers and suppliers have their own ways of going about doing business. And so they're actually suppliers for Dollar General that sell in lots, like one group at a time. And what you'll find is that there will be buyers for Dollar General who will make substantial money just on finding the right way to buy things. They make more money for their corporation than it can be just from the actual products themselves. So, hold on. So just to give an example, I wanted to show you, let's see, sorry, I didn't mean for it to go deep. Here we go. So what you find with Dollar General with Walmart is this is an example of Walmart versus a general supermarket. So Walmart will have a broad breadth or width, But some supermarkets might be more narrow because the supermarkets are focused on supermarket goods. And so Walmart has a wide width, but they don't have the depth, okay? So what you find in Walmart, the key issue between it and a supermarket is that supermarkets provide a greater category of fresh goods and organic goods because those goods are generally sold faster. And so this is their way, which using breadth and depth as a way of coming up with what they consider to be the best mix for those given organizations. So Walmart has excellent breadth. Supermarkets are narrow because supermarkets only care about the category of food items. Walmart will carry a lot of brands, but what Walmart's specialty is that they tend to have items that are more shelf stable, whereas supermarkets tend to carry things that are fresher. Okay, so I just wanted to give you an idea. It is the mix of those categories that basically determines, or it is our strategy that determines how we come up with that particular mix. All right, breadth versus depth. As I said, buyers play a central role. You can even generate more profits by buying in smart places and right lots. It's their negotiation. And we'll talk about the last part of retailing, why power is on the side now of the retail establishments. Customer service. If I have two items, or if I have the same goods as somewhere else does, I can at least do better if I'm better in customer service. Retail is the most labor-intensive industry that is still out there, of course, other than repair, which is very labor-intensive, and of course, building as well. But realize that for specialty stores to be able to compete with the larger category killers, what you tend to have is much higher service orientation. The key is to identify what functions consumers want and cater to those particular. Has anybody ever been to David's Bridal? Ever see it? Okay, went with a friend or, yeah. So parents didn't come, right? No, parents never come. Or you don't want your parents to come to a David's Bridal. I get it. So did they serve you champagne or wine? No, they didn't. I'm shocked. Oh, okay. Well, not bad. So anyway, David's Bridal is of course about selling, brides' dresses, but even more, it's about catering the service. So generally, five or six friends, guessing. Okay. Generally, you come, they will give you champagne along the way. The bride is encouraged to come out and show in the gown. She's not put on the floor like this. She's put on a raised platform with about 5 mirrors around her. And in essence, what Dave's Bridal is doing is selling that service, that desire to be able to, of course, just be beautiful in that moment. And they are. So my wife, Dr. Alvinson, she actually had 4 dresses. So she didn't buy a $2,000 dress. She bought 4 $200 dresses. I was just talking to her about it. So she brought one to take pictures in. She got one to get married in. She had one for the reception, and then she had one to go jump in the lake in. So apparently that was a thing when we were getting married. So we never jumped in the lake. Anyway, but the service end of David's Bridal is that they're selling more than just the dresses, okay? David's Bridal is selling something beautiful, and they do a very good job of it. And you can certainly go out and buy a dress anywhere you wished. But there's something about the visceral feel of actually having that dress on, the jewelry on, the need to touch and the need to see that customer service can cater to that can't necessarily be done online. And so customer service is the deal breaker when all else things are being equal, when the consumer is not necessarily looking at the price, it makes the product more valuable. Now, I had an interesting conversation with one of the people in the previous class is, do I think that that is changing? The answer is certainly. I think your generation is probably the most information rich that there is. I think that an essential amount of the selling and service that is done now, I think you perform that for yourselves, and you're one of the strongest group of buyers that has come along in a generation. And I think a lot of it just has that power of the amount of information that you have. And so do these things change? Absolutely, they change. Now, the other thing before I go on and talk about the other multi-channel strategies is the concept is that there's no one plan or one service output or retail or demand side strategy. Everybody has their own particular mix, okay? So, as I said before, it is more than just I'm going to narrow my depth and my width. There are sometimes I can do best, I can do low cost and have breadth at the same time. It's just whatever works within the system. And so you carry a wide or a wide group instead of a narrow assortment. And you do those things quite simply to be able to maximize your benefits for the consumers, basically with what you're selling. It is unique that Target sells virtually everything that Walmart does. And yet, why is Target a different solution? Why do they sell 1/5 of what Walmart does? It all comes down to the appeal that they have of the people who buy from Target versus those who buy from Walmart. So the multi-channel retail strategies, and we're just going to limit them to these three right now, is we either have an internet-only channel, a direct channel, and then what are known as the hybrid channels. So internet really got its feet under it probably around 2009, 2010. When Amazon first came out, it did not make a profit, I think, for the first 10 years. And of course, now Amazon is a monster. It took them building the infrastructure first for them to ultimately succeed to where they are now. And so they started with an internet channel and then worked down into a brick and mortar store, and they capture a significant amount of the sales online. The interesting thing about internet channels is still 86% of all retail spending is done in brick and mortar stores still. People still wish to go to physical locations. Now, the hybrid channels are the brick and mortar and the online selling. The difficulty with that is that it is a natural place for free riding and where there is channel conflict. Along with the hybrid channel, you have the direct selling channel, which once again, the internet has caused issue with. The direct selling channel are for goods such as Avon, for Pampered Chef. Those are what is considered the direct selling channel. And so what you will have is you will have face-to-face personal selling, and that each one of the distributors is an independent contractor. They do not have any other connection to Avon or to Pampered Chef or any of the others. They buy the goods from them and they sell the goods at reseller. The difficulty with direct selling is that they have to pay a non-refundable fee, and that direct selling channel actually makes more money with recruits than they do with the actual selling of the goods. And so generally an Avon seller will be looking for other sellers to sell under them. And so it is pyramidic in base. And what I mean by that is, in order to make money, you need more and more people under you. And the pyramid scheme is that you need more sellers or more recruits than you actually need more selling of the product. So is it illegal? No, but it's based upon a model that eventually runs itself out. So just to give you an idea of the hybrid retail channel with conflict and cannibalization, anybody ever use Callaway golf clubs? Anybody ever buy them? You have? Did you get a set or you bought them left and where? You're real. Did you, how did they sell you the brand? How did they do anything other than sell you the clubs? Did they try to fit them for you or anything?
No.
Okay.
Online website.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Where did you get them, by the way? Where did you get the clubs? Did they send them to you? Okay. All right. Yeah. Callaway has gone through a change because you could only get through a pro shop. Okay. Callaway clubs are fitted. Did you have to give them any measurements or anything?
No, you could pick different sizes based on what was available.
Right. Because one of the things about Callaway clubs is that you would go in and you would have them fitted for yourself. Okay. So, they would depend on your palm size, how tall you are, a lot of other things like that. Callaway was originally sold through pro shops, which are the shops that are connected to golf courses. Okay. Green fees is only one of the ways they make money. They make a lot of money off of selling golf clubs. Well, when Callaway started selling online, they got into trouble with the pro shops because pro shops make a lot of money that way. So they had to come up with a way is that whenever they would sell something online, there would be some certain amount that would go to the pro shops downstream in order to carry it. So that's one of the difficulties that it has with conflict. And ultimately, the websites cannibalize the sales that go on in the pro shop. There needs to be some way of resolving this. The same thing happened with Avon, because Avon has these individuals who are at home who are using this as a secondary income, which reminds me, in your life, come up with a second gig, all right? Have your primary income and find something else that you do that generates money. My daughter, oh my God, she's 11 years old going on 20. And she's into cosmetology and nails and all the other things. She does my wife's makeup, okay, just to give you an idea. She's going to go get her cosmetology degree. It's going to be an extra income stream for her. I love the fact that she has it. And I would say that for each one of you, have a second way of generating income. Well, that's what the Avon did. Well, Avon started selling their goods online and started to get a lot of feedback because realize, the discretionary income, a lot of that just came from them. So Avon came up with a solution. What they do is you can buy the goods online, but if you're an Avon person, they will, in essence, bring the goods to you and hopefully do some add-on selling. Hybrid channels, by their nature, have conflict and cannibalization, and there needs to be some way, like Callaway and Avon, for resolving this conflict before it becomes simply too big to be able to control. And so these are, on the test, it'll be internet, direct selling, and hybrid, and we'll talk about the omni-channel on Tuesday. And that's about all I got voice for today, okay? So as I've said, I've got the tests graded. I will post them this weekend to make sure everybody gets their points. We will come back on Tuesday talking about the power of major retailers, and then we're going to move on to wholesaling next Tuesday. So everybody go have a great weekend. It's going to be beautiful. Take care. See you.
Thank you. Would it be a good time to take my test?